Hi, everyone. Welcome to AI Unfiltered. Today's podcast title is Building a Better Future, AI and Women's Wellbeing. And we have a very special guest with us today. Our guest today is Madhumita Jina. Madhu is the founder of a startup focusing on women's wellness using AI technologies. Madhu has over 2 decades of extensive software engineering experience across platform and product, has worked in large and small companies, including nonprofit and pre-IPO companies. And her leadership roles include senior engineering management roles at DigitalOcean, Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, before starting her own company. She's an effective people leader and loves building diverse multi-site teams. And she lives in the Bay with her husband and 2 sons. She loves to travel and bake with her family. Welcome, Madhu. That's quite an introduction. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you for the introduction. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation today.
So, Madhu, I understand that you have been using AI and you taught yourself AI as well, and you started this great company for women's health being. So, tell me, how did you get started in this, and how did you even think about using AI for this particular?
Definitely. So I think it's a part of it is luck or destiny, I would say. So even before this entire generative AI thing came up in March last year, Feb, I was thinking about doing something for women's health. The initiative is a very personal thing for me because I had some complications after the birth of like my second child, and then when I worked with my healthcare team, both physical and mental health folks, I felt that there was a big gap for people like me, like women of color. If you look at the data for health, there's a big gap between men and women, and even in women there's more data for Caucasian women and much lesser data for people like me. So I felt there was a huge gap, and I felt like I need to do something to solve this because I felt like I'm not able to achieve my full potential. I'm sure there are a lot of other women around me who are in similar stages. And that's kind of why I started Nari. I talked to like 50 plus women. I did a huge survey with like more than 200 responses. Initially, my idea was maybe I should build an app which helps in personalizing this information for Indian women. And right at that time, Gen AI came in, and I realized that the responses that I was getting from ChatGPT was better than the average nutrition person or average mental health person that I could get from. And that's kind of where I was like, this is something that I can use to help people. Around May last year, I thought, what if I create a chatbot? And that's kind of how I got started. And then one of the ideas that I had was that I wanted to do this for Indian women to start with, and try it out in the Indian market. I didn't want to like really build a new UI or anything. So I said, let me connect this to WhatsApp. And I put it out there, and I had pretty good response. I felt like this is a technology which can really help a women, and the response was pretty good. Within the first 1 month of putting it out, I had thousands of messages in the platform with minimal amount of advertising that I used, less than $100. So AI was able to answer a lot of questions that people had. To a certain extent, it was also at the point I was trying to build something and the technology came in, and I am pretty bullish about what it can do for people and women in particular.
I'm actually a little bit surprised to hear that Gen AI was able to answer the questions you were asking better than the nutritionist. So, did you have to train this model in any specific way? Did you find any gaps?
I have not trained the models in any specific way because one of the big things I've realized working on this space for a good amount of time is that you need to have a specific data to train this model to make it better. And the big gap that we have right now is we actually don't have as much data as we would want to start fine tuning this stuff. One of the things I mentioned is like it was better than the average nutrition person. It's not like the highest or the best person who can personalize everything for you, but it was better than the average person that I could find. And it was a quick 24 cross 7 channel and it's been helpful. I do feel that in the mental health space, it is pretty decent. I think the answers that it gives are like pretty good.
Okay, that's awesome. Can you share a little bit about how did you teach yourself AI and what advice do you have for others who want to learn AI and leverage this for the problems they're seeing in their space?
One of the things I did to do to learn AI was actually just look at the problem that I had in hand and try to see what tool makes sense for me to build stuff. And it has been on the job, like learning it on the job. I do like try things in different models to see which works well for what. For medical advice, I felt the Google models were better. For the general advice, I feel like the ChatGPT models have been better. I also follow some of the channels, the ML Ops channels and things like that on Discord, where people are talking about different ideas and different tools that people are building. I feel that more than before, like if I had to build something like what I've built today 10 years back, it would have taken a lot more time. But now we have much better infrastructure. You have cloud infrastructure where you can spin up a server within a minute and start coding immediately. Take that in, and then you have also these powerful APIs which are able to generate the content and infer things for you. When you put those two things together, it's going to be much easier to build stuff. The thing I feel is, if you have the capacity and time to learn, there are tools available right now for you to quickly put things together and make something that's pretty useful for people.
So, if someone was getting started, what advice would you give them? What is the first step they should do?
I think the best place to start would be use one of the playgrounds, or like use Bard or Gemini to just start and try to see what it can do. And if you have a specific problem, try to give it that specific problem and see if the answers that you're getting is satisfactory. That would be one of the first things I would do, like to see if like the existing large language models can actually solve them. I'm sure that some of the more complex problems can't be solved by just using the large language model, at which point of time I would highly recommend them to go and see how are people building the AI applications, what are the different architectures people are using, how can you use AI as well as your existing system to integrate to build a better product. So first step would be to see if a large language model can solve, and the second step would be is to go the next step to figure out if what's that architecture that's going to help you build the product you want.
So, try out the popular LLMs
Yes.
that are available,
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Gemini, and see how they perform, and then try some
Yeah.
of the other models that are available and see if the problem you have will be solved by it, or maybe you'll need
Yeah.
something else.
And
Okay.
yeah, and over time, I also think that the large language models would be generic things like search, but you will probably have to train smaller models to do the specific work that you need to do. And you need to figure out the path to that. But I think starting with the large models will really help you first see if it's even capable of doing the stuff that you need to do.
That's very good advice, Madhu. So, you also are using, as I understand, AI for daily productivity and your day-to-day work. Can you give examples of how you're using it and how someone else may be able to use it for their productivity?
Definitely. When I think about AI and generative AI in general, I think of it as this super smart friend of mine who has like really good memory and reads every single book that they could read. And it's also this system which can learn a lot of things about me and combine its expert advice. It's an expert with some in its things, combine that expert advice with my personal information to give me the recommendations or plans on how I could do things. So that's kind of what I think AI is, and I feel that it can help me learn new things, plan things, and execute things much better. I want to look at this thing with an angle of how it can help women. And I think the first thing that I feel is that we as women need to take care of ourselves to be able to take care of others, as well as be successful in our careers or at home or whatever you want to do, right? I'm not suggesting one way or the other. So I feel like AI can help you having these reminders. For example, we've been all been using like Alexa, Google Home for such a long time. It can remind you to take your vitamin tablets. And if you have not set that alarm yet, please do that. And it can help you actually find personalized plans which can help you meet your health goals. I feel like the AI chatbots are pretty decent with respect to mental health help. If you're going through a crisis, it does help you, give you some practical advice till you have access to a therapist on how to do things. Take it with a grain of salt, but it can still give some good constructive advice. So that's one aspect of it. The second thing I would think about is we talk about this huge mental load where it's not just about what you're doing, but what your family is doing. And I would bring back the same reminders thing. You can use reminders to remind yourself and your family member to do things like practice piano now, do your homework, and all of that can be automated. The second thing I want to see more of is like if it can actually automate some of the mundane repetitive tasks. I would love if there is a robot which puts all my dishes in the dishwasher. Dishwasher is great, but I think if I can do more of it, I'll be happy. I would love to see more innovation there and more people pitching in there. And the third thing is that I think there are a lot of like time management tools which can help us get more time. And if we want to learn a new skill or something, I think AI can give us a personalized plan to like build stuff or like to learn stuff and grow from there.
So, using it for reminders, for your personalized plans, for example, exercise, health, doing research,
Yes,
and just using it for your day-to-day productivity,
day to day
all of the
productivity.
all the
Yes.
tasks that you have to do.
Yeah, I think the only thing is once I had like a really bad schedule and I put it on both ChatGPT and Gemini, and it said it cannot help me. The only way I can solve this is by delegating things. So it didn't have any other recommendations other than delegating stuff.
So maybe that's a clue that you do
That's it.
need some help. If ChatGPT and Gemini is also saying that delegation is the only way.
This is, yeah, delegation is only way. There's just too much on your plate. But it felt reassuring to hear that artificial intelligence feels the same way as my own system. So
That's awesome. And have you used any of these tools for, you mentioned a little bit about your family and kids. Can you give a couple of examples where you have used it
I
for your
use it a
kids?
lot for planning vacations. I use it a lot for if there is a tricky situation that's going on, or to figure out what do I do with this is the situation that's happening at home. What would be like good steps for me to take? The reason why I trust ChatGPT and Gemini is that they have read all of these books of Gottman. Gottman is this person who has done a lot of like research, and a lot of therapy in the US is based on his books. And I feel like it's read all of it, and the advice it gives actually is very similar to Gottman's stuff. I do trust it a little bit to get that initial stage of things. Of course, there is recipes, cooking, and all those things. I think the main thing is to create plans for vacations, for summer camps. Those are some of the main things that we have used it as a family to improve our lives.
And that's wonderful. So now I want to talk a little bit about Nari. I know we touched upon it a little bit in the beginning, but why don't you share what is Nari, what does it do, and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, the main aim of Nari, once the AI came into picture, pivoted to actually making AI accessible to all women. And one of the ways that I've achieved that is by building these. Actually, I've built two chatbots now. One is a general purpose chatbot, and the other one is a support chatbot, which is served through WhatsApp. One thing that I realized is that a lot of people like us who are in tech in Bay Area might actually go to the OpenAI website or the Gemini console, but the other folks are not going to necessarily do that. And so, how can I increase access? And that's why the WhatsApp. So, as I mentioned earlier, right, the response to the chatbots was like much better than I expected, and I've had more than 100K messages that I've received in last 6 months, and more than 14,000 people have used it. So I do feel that one of the things which is to actually give them access has actually worked out, and that has been extremely fulfilling for me. And one of the things that I realized is that I started off with wanting to help people like me realize their potential, but my chatbot was not being used by people like me. The main audience there was like 18 to like 30 years old, and their concerns are different than our concerns. And I think that the main theme, which also kind of helps in closing the data gap to a certain extent, you're trying to understand what are people thinking about. So one of the big things is actually relationships, where they're talking about problems with their parents, with their spouse or partners, and also LGBTQ issues. The second theme I noticed was the being becoming financially independent and how can they find jobs. Some folks were asking about work from home jobs. Some people want to find jobs outside. I had a good mix of that. And the third thing is educational opportunities. So it's been interesting to see that you built something for a one set of audience, but that audience is actually not engaged, and then you're able to engage a different audience. So it's been good to see these are the things that people are thinking about, and I've been able to provide a platform where they can anonymously ask questions and get some of the responses that they need to like make their lives better.
I also want to just mention that Nari means woman
Mhm.
in English. So you built this chatbot for women's issue. You had 100K messages and you had 40K women actually using it. And out of that, you started getting questions around menopause. And then you ended up building another chatbot which focuses on menopause.
Mhm.
And how is the reception for this bot been?
The reception for the menopause bot has also been great. Like within the first 15 days of putting it out, I had more than like 2K followers. The reason for me to like also focus on menopause was that when I did my initial conversations with people, I realized that there was a gap for women in India. I think one simple data gap is like in the US we say that people hit menopause around 50, whereas in India the average age is around 46. So you're going to see the perimenopause symptoms like 4 years earlier, which is like around 35 or 36, and that itself can like change on when you need to make your health interventions and why are you dealing with what the symptoms that you're dealing with. That can change the way you need to take care of yourself, right? So that was one of the reasons where I started the menopause. I feel like there isn't actually enough data because I talk to people. Some people are extremely miserable. Some people, they don't even know that they're going through and they go through it. I haven't actually gotten as much data as I would have wanted yet on this stuff by talking to people, and my hope is that with this bot I will be able to get more information to see where women are and what they can do to deal with things that are coming up better. It's also another thing that menopause is a tricky time where you are dealing with multiple things. You kind of have a little bit older kids, so you have that stress going on. You have elderly parents, then you're going through all of this hormonal stuff. If you're working, you have work pressure, and so it's just like it's a very hard problem to like figure out on what's impacting what and then how do you actually solve it. Yeah, and I think there is some amount of work done in that space here in the US, but I think there is a lot more that can be done.
So not only Nari is addressing the health concerns that women have, for example, menopause and other health concerns, you're also gathering data, and hopefully this will be able to bridge some data gaps that we see in
Yes.
AI, that we see in technology, because the responses that the AI will give is as good as data. One
Yes.
analogy I like to use is it's like a juicer. You put healthy stuff in, you put fruits and veggies in, you'll get healthy juice out. If you put a lot of sugary and
Yes.
carbs in, that's what you're going to get out. So I'm very impressed with what Nari is doing. Not only it's helping women, it's also helping AI and the health data that's much needed. Can you talk about, besides the data gap, there are shortcomings in AI now that you have using it for a while. So what
Okay.
other issues do you see with AI?
AI is going to be what you have programmed. And as you said, it is only going to be as good as the data is there. So obviously there is concerns whether it's correct, whether it's consistent. We all know that it hallucinates. When it does not know the answers, it would randomly say things. Definitely, there is bias that is brought into bias because of the data that's coming in. And then this entire concept of explainability, explain why you're telling what you're telling. And then sometimes you just don't know what's going on in these systems. And I think these are all some of the things that we need to address in AI going forward. While the image and video generation is awesome, I also feel very scared for what it can do, because it can actually create a lot of harmful content very easily and very, very fast. The impact of this, from what I've been reading, is also mostly on women, because a lot of this is used for creating pornographic content about women. And I do feel fast AI can be extremely useful and can help you become very productive, but it can also amplify negative things. And so I feel we need to work towards that to make sure that AI is safe.
Yes, it's very important. There is a lot of issues in ethics, privacy, and integrity. We have to make sure that we're working towards. And as you mentioned, unfortunately, there is more innovation going on, the imaging and video and other features, whereas on the regulation policies, having the guardrails around what AI
Mhm.
can do and what it cannot do, it's been a little bit behind. So
It's
I
been
also
behind.
hope that it does pick up and as we go forward, because as you said, I feel the same way. It's exciting, but it's actually scary at the same time. So we have
Right,
to
right,
use it
right.
with a grain of salt. As you mentioned, there are biases, so you have to keep track of it. It's very, very interesting what you have done, Madhu. You taught yourself AI, you have created this company, you're helping women. What advice do you have for women who either want to start on entrepreneur journey, who want to create something, or women who want to learn AI, or maybe someone who wants to do both?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I feel is the most important thing for all of us to address is that our capacity to do stuff. For me, the entrepreneurship journey has been interesting because I came to this journey after a career break. So I came in with a lot of like doubt and self confidence issues on whether I can actually do stuff. But what I've realized is that if you have the capacity, and by capacity, I mean is it's going to be based on your life stages where you have more capacity to work on your career, you can learn new things and build stuff if you want. And I just wanted to bring that up because sometimes we see these shiny journeys and we feel that, oh, that person is able to do it, I should be able to do it. I always tell people that it depends on where you are with your life, what stage you are, and how much you can do. And I've been in stages of my life where I've not been able to do anything. And so just look at what your capacity is and whether you can actually work on a problem and you have the time to do it. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I feel today it's so much easier to build things that you want to build than it was 10 years back with the variety of tools you have. If you have a problem, see how you can solve it in the simplest manner. It does not have to be complex. You can quickly learn things now. There is so much more tooling available than 10 years back, and you can build the prototype pretty quickly. And whether you can scale it or not is the next step. But if you have this mindset of like, I can do this, I have the capacity to do this, I'm sure a lot of us can build very useful things. And no, nothing is small. Try small thing, take small steps to like to get where you want to be.
I love that. Nothing is small, and you have to just try it. So, Madhu, if someone wants to use this menopause bot or the women's health bot, how can they do that? You mentioned it's on WhatsApp.
So I do have a Facebook pages where I have examples of how it can be used, but you can access the bot using the messenger on the Facebook page or using WhatsApp. So it's easy. It's like just chat in the interfaces that you already know.
Okay, that's perfect. I'll put the link
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
description so that people who are listening and have questions, this is a very, very valuable tool. Thank you so much, Madhu. It's been very inspirational to hear your story, how you learned AI, how you built this whole company, and how you're helping women in this journey. So thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me in the call, Mamta.